or evening, depending on where you're coming from. I'm Emily. I'm the program advisor at Coaching Out of the Box, and I'm your host for today's webinar on coach credentialing. You might be surprised, we get a ton of questions about this particular topic, and we're super excited to host the webinar and answer all your questions around coach credentialing and the ICF. Before we get started, I'm going to throw up some poll questions. We will leave them up for a few minutes to give us a sense of who's on the webinar today and what brings you to the webinar. So you'll have a few minutes to answer some of those questions, and we'll share the results. So in terms of what brings you here, depending on where you are in your coaching journey and your coach training, we have tons of solutions for you in terms of programs, products, course offerings, mentor coaching, kind of anything that you might need for coach credentialing, we can help you out with. And we're going to as well talk a little bit today about mentor coaching and the importance of it and the requirement for the ICF. We offer mentor coaching through the Fast Track program for your ICF credentialing, as well as we offer it as a standalone program if you just require mentor coaching for your credentialing or you are renewing your credentials. So we'll talk a little bit more about what that requirement is today. And I would now like to introduce Susan Cranston, one of our wonderful coach facilitators at Coaching Out of the Box. She's joining me today in giving you all of the valuable information about coach credentialing. Susan, did you want to say hello or say anything else?
Well, I'm happy to be here with everybody. Thank you for taking the time to choose to join us today. So I am an executive coach. I'm also a business consultant, and I worked for quite a few years in corporate Canada for different companies in financial services before I branched out on my own and pursued coaching. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. And I'm excited to share with you. So I'm a mom, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a retired marathoner, and I love education. And I believe it's never too late to learn and grow. And that's what we're going to do here too, is to talk about that and the credentialing process for all the learning that everyone's doing on their path here today. So I'm excited to be here. I hope we can make this as interactive and get your questions answered. And remember that this session is going to be recorded. So back over to you, Emily, and let us know more how the poll's coming along.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Susan. We're getting some good responses in here. We'll leave it open for another 30 seconds or so, and then we can share the results. A couple of things with regards to the webinar. Susan's going to cover a ton of information today. She's also written a very detailed and information-full blog that will share a link to the blog in the chat as well. Any questions that you have on your mind about coaching credentialing, please pop it in the chat. Make sure that you are sending it to panelists and attendees. And throughout the webinar, I'll pop on and we'll discuss some of the questions. And if any questions that you have that you feel you didn't get an answer to, we'll have the chat to follow up with you directly to answer those questions. And yeah, we'll be popping in some other information and links in the chat that are helpful. So I'm just going to close the poll here now. Excuse me. And we'll share those results so everyone can kind of see where we're at. And Susan, I will let you take it away.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Emily, for that introduction, and welcome everyone. I'm so glad you chose to spend this time here with us. We want to make sure that you feel that you're getting your questions answered. And if something, as Emily said, comes up that you're not sure about, there's always an opportunity to connect with us after the fact. So, as we've seen from the poll responses, there are many reasons to be interested in coaching, and people come to it from various backgrounds and experiences. And, it could be from adding coaching as a side hustle to pursuing it as a full-time career. Coaching it's an exciting and it's an emerging field that increasingly more people are pursuing, particularly during, these sort of uncertain times. So almost 10 years ago, I decided that I wanted to become a professional coach. And I've been working in leadership and human resources roles for some of Canada's largest employers, as I mentioned, in financial services. And that gave me lots of opportunity to start coaching people. And I learned that I really loved being a coach and a strategic thinking partner for the people that I was coaching. And coaching is really about supporting people through change. And we're certainly going through our fair share of that right now. A coach supports their clients to bridge the gap from where they are now to where they want to be. And it helps equip clients to face those challenges that they may feel they just need a little bit of support and some, additional accountability to help them. And that's where coaching can come in. So a coaching relationship, though, and I think this is really important to reinforce, it's a partnership where answers come from the client and not the coach. And there's often a lot of confusion around that for someone who's never been have worked with a coach before. It also involves supporting a client's ability to pursue their goals faster and farther and easier than they could have done without a coach. And I just want to take a moment to recognize my colleagues. We've been connecting here with Emily, but there's also Stephanie, who is sort of, you can see her picture there, working diligently behind the scenes. I want to thank her for all of her efforts here. She's a rock in terms of her ability to stay calm and manage all of these things. So I'm feeling really great about you being here, Stephanie. Hey, fantastic. So as we go through our time together today, if you've got questions or comments, both Emily and Stephanie are here to help me manage through the chat and to add important resources such as the ICF website, which we could put up now, which is coachingfederation.org, and a link to my blog post that's on the Coaching Out of the Box website, because there's lots of links and additional context there. So if you have a choice, you can watch the recording again or look at the blog and check things out, and then always go to the ICF site. They also have a fabulous and very effective chat feature. So make sure you check that out. All right, so whether you work from, for an employer that supports coaching as an HR professional, or maybe a leader, or perhaps even an entrepreneur like myself, looking to become a credentialed, either internal or external coach, this webinar, I want to be a conversation that we have with you about navigating the coach credentialing process. So as you can see on the slide, we're going to start with the International Coaching Federation. So Coaching Out of the Box is not the ICF. So I just want to be clear around that. The Coaching Out of the Box is one of the approved coach training partners. So offer training to help facilitate your ability to, if you want to pursue a credential with the ICF, the Coaching Out of the Box is a great organization to help facilitate that one-stop shopping for you. So just want to mention that. So the ICF is the largest or the main global nonprofit organization dedicated to professional coaching, coach accrediting, and coach training programs. And that's what Coaching Out of the Box is. So the ICF really helps professional coaches to regulate coaching standards. And this is super important because coaching remains an unregulated industry. And the ICF then provides accreditations to professionals who want to practice, but also perhaps even teach coaching. And I'm just going to share a couple stats with you so you have a sense of the scope of the ICF. And this is going back from July of 2020. So the numbers might not be 100% there. They're like they have increased. The ICF has approximately 53,000 members in 147 countries and territories, and there are just over 30,000 coaches in 130 countries and territories who hold one of the ICF credentials. So there are almost 17,000 associate certified coaches. That's the ACC, and we're going to spend a fair chunk of time talking about that. And about 12,000 professional certified coaches, or PCCs, and just over 1,200 master certified coaches. So you can see here in the stream coming in. That's why we're going to spend most of our time talking about the credentialing into the ACC, because that's sort of the influx, the main sort of pathway in for the accreditation process. So I just want to also reiterate that the ICF does not offer coach training. Coaching out of the box does, and there are other companies too, but we're only going to be talking about coaching out of the box. Rather, they accredit coaches who need to meet core competencies, rigorous coach training requirements, and who agree to uphold strict code of ethics as set out by Coaching Out of the Box. So I'm just going to pause here for a second. Emily, what are you seeing coming in the chat? Because I've been talking for a little bit, and I know we're still on this ICF slide. I see here we've got one. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, there's been a question specific to essentially re-credentialing and recertification for someone who was formerly a PCC coach. And there was also some more detailed information requested around mentor coaching and specifically finding credentialed mentor coaches.
Okay. So we're going to touch fairly high level on some of these things, but around the mentoring, we're going to talk about that as well and dive into it, as there are a couple slides that are pretty meaty around this. So as I go through that, just make sure that you're there for that piece of it. And then I also see Sharon is saying, you're looking for some hints around the ICF exam for certification. Well, if you take the CKA course through Coaching Out of the Box, it sets you up beautifully to do extremely well in that. And there's also I'm going to touch on it briefly, but that course itself is really, really helpful to guide you there. And I'll just mention briefly, Sharon, that there are 155 questions. They're online, they're adjudicated, and you have 60 days from the time you get the link to actually complete that. Okay. All right. So our reality is, unlike other professions, coaching is really growing. It's a booming industry right now. And more people are recognizing that coaching benefits organizations, leaders, entrepreneurs, and I think really everyone. Coaching can benefit everyone. I'm going to throw some more stats at you. In 2017, the ICF conducted a global coaching awareness study, and they found that 83% of organizations felt it was important that their coach had a credential or a certification. And again, think back to the idea, this is an unregulated industry. So having something like a credential gives meat, gives some weight to this. And also one of the things that I've really noticed is that if you look at job postings, particularly on LinkedIn or Indeed, 80 to 90% of job postings, especially in leadership roles, they're looking for their applicants to have the ability to coach. So looking at that as a skill, leader as coach, is really, really important. And according to another ICF study, they tend to do these things regularly, which is really helpful. There's great value in working with a coach. Now, all of us on this webinar know that, but the study highlighted that 70% of respondents to this survey believe that coaching is really valuable. And 50% said that they confide in their coach just as much as they do their best friend, their spouse, or their therapist. And then 12% of those respondents said they confide in their coach more than they do anyone else. So we know that coaching can improve morale, retention, team dynamics, relationships with others, quality of life, and your income. And it also helps with the ability to obtain your goals and learn new skills. It can increase your self-awareness, reduce stress, and boost confidence. So this is, in my opinion, so many reasons to be down this path and to take it seriously. And by taking it seriously, it's looking at this credentialing process. So I've been talking for a while again, and I want to check in and ask you to use the chat feature. What's been your experience with coaching? So put in the chat how coaching has helped you. Take a moment. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. How has coaching helped you? All right. So one of the key statements, and you're going to see this on this slide, is their ICF's definition of coaching. And we've included it here. And it's important to, I'm just going to read it. ICF defines coaching as partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. I think this definition really helps to clarify what coaching is, but more importantly, what it isn't. Coaching isn't counseling, mentoring, consulting, or training. And I don't know if you've had this experience. I'm going to check in to see if you have, but it's easy for people to be unclear about their expectations of coaching. And they might look for you as either a coach in training or a coach to tell them what to do, and then become either confused or frustrated when you explain to them that giving advice isn't a coach's role. So share in the chat if you've ever needed to clarify or explain what coaching is to someone. Hey, this is great. So I'm seeing a few responses here. This is good. Help me adapt my style. Moving, all right, open my mind to the power of holding space, truly listening and being curious. I love these responses. This is so good. Wonderful. Moving into action on things I had felt stuck about. Help me adapt my style. Help me with my mindset. I'm loving that you're sharing. Thank you. It's life-changing. Wow. Help me reach my potential. Who wouldn't want to be in this space, right? Just thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So coming back to this question I just asked around confusion. Have you run into this situation, or even for yourself, had some confusion around whether or not, what a coach's role is? So I'll leave that there too, if you want to add something like that in the chat. Well, here's what I know. Coach training boosts your ability to help your clients create deep and meaningful change in their life. And we've seen that even through some of these chat responses. And earlier, Emily walked us through the coaching courses offered by Coaching Out of the Box. And again, I'll mention that it's an ICF approved coach training partner. We're not the ICF. But before we talk about the steps in the credentialing process, I really want to emphasize the importance of getting the basics down. This can feel a bit daunting, even just thinking about taking these steps toward the credentialing. And so what I mean by this is you might not know yet what type of coach you want to become, but coach training can help ensure you have all the foundational elements that are key to successful coaching. So, and if you want to put in the chat, take a moment to type, I'm clear about what type of client, who my target client is, or I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure where I'm going to specialize. Just going to take a moment to see if there's anything in the chat. Yeah, so it's whether you're clear or not clear, this is just an opportunity for us to have a conversation and to dialogue around, things that you can consider as you go down this path. But when you're taking coach training, and as you're preparing for the credentialing, you can start to figure that out. You don't have to have all the answers right now. Some of you are really clear, fairly clear, considering most meaningful to me. Yeah, like just, it's not necessary to put that amount of pressure on yourself. Just, it's also an opportunity to think about the things that people come to you for, where your strengths are, and what brings you energy as you think about the type of coaching. Yay, some of them are good, pretty clear. Career development leaders and executive coaching, awesome, very clear. Thank you so much for your responses. So could we advance the slide now? I want to move on. I felt like we've looked at the ICF logo long and awesome, thank you. So why would you hold a credential? It seems pretty self-evident, but we know that coaching is moving more toward becoming more mainstream every day. It's not just for, top executives to have this, or elite athletes. So what's triggering the demand? Well, we can see that there's a change in global perception of coaching. And there's an opportunity, as you said, to really look at meeting a need and helping people transform whatever it is that they have in their life and whatever their goals are, or the obstacles that might be in their way. And having the ICF credential helps you really distinguish yourself from others in this emerging coaching industry. And also, if you're working with organizations, they want to hire you knowing that they've got the quality assurance they need, right? So this credential can automatically give you what I'd say credibility in the space. It ensures your legitimacy as a professional coach, and there's rigor in meeting the ICF requirements, including the standards around coach training. And we're going to talk about those things, particularly as we look at the 3 streams for the ACC, the rules around coach practice, which is, as you're practicing your coaching with others, whether it's peer coaching or even working with clients, the code of ethics for members, and the venue for consumers also, if there's an issue, to file ethical complaints. So Emily or Stephanie, could you share the link to the ICF code of ethics page? That would be helpful to just pop that in the chat so folks can see that and we can just reference it. Awesome, perfect. Having an ICF credential can really increase your ability also, if you're thinking financially, to charge professional fees that are worthy of having that credential. And when you add the ICF badge, whether it's the ACC, the PCC, or the MCC to your resume or your LinkedIn profile, it immediately demonstrates your commitment to coaching excellence. When you're doing the work of attaining a credential, it can really enhance and strengthen the work you're already doing, whether it's in HR, leading teams, or providing internal or external coaching to your clients in support of their business, health, or life goals. So I want to hear from you again. What's drawing you to consider the ICF coach credential? So just put that in your chat. What's making you be here today? Why are you thinking about the credential? Yeah, so many organizations want PCC. Yeah, absolutely. Better contracts, 100%. I'm just going to share something with you. The moment, and this is personal, but I feel like we're in this close group here. The moment I attained my PCC, I posted my badge on LinkedIn. The next day, I had requests from 5 new coaching clients. And that was, I blew me away. I couldn't believe that actually happened. So it works, and I'm living proof of it. So I just want to share that with you. It's real. I'd like to put more weight in my credibility for sure. Thanks, Lucy, for sharing. And Ryan, develop leadership skills in my current position, as well as build potential business outside my love this. Yeah, like there's so many reasons. And Jane, yeah, I'm just going to go back and see what Jane says. It can be timely process. So I want to give myself time to just, think it through, right? Like you don't want to enter into any of this lightly, but you've got support, whether it's through the ICF or coaching out of the box, or even if, you want to reach out to another coach that already has the credential, just have those conversations and find out what they went through, what their recommendations are, what their thoughts are. There are people here to support you. It's a really fantastically supportive industry when you're in coaching. Credibility. Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. So let's advance to the next slide. What path is right for you? We really want to explore the coach credential path. And as I said, we're going to focus on the ACC, and that's the Associate Certified Coach path. And this, I believe, is the first stepping stone in the process. And there are 3 paths you can follow. So I want you to hang on, maybe, buckle yourself in for this, take a sip of water, and we're going to kind of dive into the technicalities of this in the next couple of slides. But just remember, there's tons of information on the ICF website, as well as on the Coaching Out of the Box website, and that blog that's posted there that I wrote to walk you through everything that I'm sharing today. And you'll also get a recording of this webinar. So those 3 paths within the ACC are Accredited Coach Training Program, and the acronym is ACTP, which just stands for Accredited Coach Training Program. So think program. And then Approved Coach Specific Training Hours, which is the ACSTH, and that's the most common and flexible. And then the third is the portfolio path. So I'm going to touch on each of these 3, and we're going to start with the ASCTH. Those are the hours, which is the most flexible. And I want you to just think about what it is that you want to pursue and why you want it as well. And we're going to dive into looking at, or I'm just going to mention briefly too, and Emily and Stephanie, could you include a link to the coach training where they can look at the ICF search service, so they can see all the different organizations that offer the approved coach training. So it's called the TPSS. And then if you're looking on the ICF website, and you can just check out, and you can look at it by category, by the organization's name, to see what you might be interested in. and what they qualify for, because that's something you want to do up front. And this process can seem a bit confusing, so just starting there is really helpful to make sure that you know. And obviously, one-stop shopping, if you're looking at coaching out of the box, that's a great, great thing to do. So with the ACSTH programs, they're really accredited on an hour by hour basis. So it's more a la carte as opposed to a full program. So if you think about that, hour by hour, a la carte, and they may or may not have a full coach training program, depending on the number of students in contact hours. So students who complete all of their training hours through this program can apply for the ICF credential using the ACSTH path. And here's what you're going to need, and I'm going to cover this a few times, so don't worry about needing to write it down or even letting it sink into your long-term memory at this point. You can just take in what I'm saying. You need at least 60 hours of coach-specific training through an ACTP or an ACSTH program. Remember to check the ICF website to make sure you've got your program that you're looking at is approved. 10 hours of mentor coaching. So for that person who asked the question about mentor coaching, you need to make sure you've got 10 hours of mentor coaching over a minimum of 3 months. And it's got to be documented on your online application. And your mentor coach must be an ACC who has completed the full cycle of the credential through to renewal through the ICF, or a PCC or an MCC in good standing. So let's say you were looking at mentor coaching with someone to get your ACC. You want to make sure that that person is, at least if they are an ACC, that they've gone through that renewal cycle once. And ideally looking at someone who's in good standing with the PCC or an MCC. Now, if you were going for your PCC, you want to either have someone who's got at the PCC level, you couldn't use someone with just the ACC accreditation. So you could look at PCC or MCC. So hopefully that makes sense. You're also going to need a minimum of 100 hours of coaching experience with at least 8 different clients. And here's the important part: following the start of your coach specific training program. So not before. So anything you've done before you start in a coach specific training program does not count to tracking. And we have one slide that just talks about that, which is one of the most commonly asked questions that we get. You're going to need at least 25 of these hours to occur within 24 months prior to submitting your application for the credential. And so you need 75-25 ratio, 75 paid or barter, or some way where there's been a negotiation around pricing or an exchange. And this change to 70-30 is due to the impact of COVID, and it runs, as far as we know right now, with the ICF through to December 31st, 2021. In addition to that, you need to submit a performance evaluation. And that's basically an audio recording and a written transcript of a coach session that's uploaded with your application. And ideally at least 30 minutes, but no more than 60. So somewhere in that window is ideal. And then once you go through that process and they've gone through, the ICF assessors have gone through and looked at your application, then you'll get a link, if everything is according to as it needs to be, a link to complete the coach knowledge assessment. So that's that exam. And that's called the CKA. And there's a course within the Coaching Out of the Box program that just focuses on helping you prepare for that exam. So hopefully that helps. So is there anything else coming in at this point? I just want to pause and see if anyone has a question, because we just did some heavy lifting around one of the paths. We've got 2 more to go. We're going to be a little bit faster. Nothing so far? Okay. All right. So the next is the ACTP accredit. Oh, do you have something, Emily? Is there anything that's coming up for you?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, somebody asked about if you must begin with your ACC credentials, or could you go to PCC?
Did you read my mind? This is like whoever asked that question, and Emily, you posing it right now, is perfect, because this next path, I'm going to talk about that. So I can, and I can definitely address that. And, it is confusing. I'm going to go through this a few times. And then, as I mentioned, go onto the ICF website, look at the Coaching Out of the Box blog. It will sink in. It's just a lot to take in. And that's why we're here doing this, just to help you start to navigate it and let it socialize these ideas in terms of what you're thinking about. All right. So the next is the ACTP. That's the program. And this is basically a start to finish coach training program that includes the comprehensive instruction around the ICF core competencies, the code of ethics, and a definition of coaching. And it also includes mentor coaching. So this is something that Coaching Out of the Box offers as well. Not every training program includes elements of the mentor coaching component. And Emily touched on this before, and I just want to reiterate that. That's an important component to the accreditation requirements. And so when you're in this program, you can apply for the credential using the ATC path. Now, in many cases, this program is, I would say, like 125 hours, and many people already have experience. They're internal coaches for an organization. So they might be a career coach, or they're doing HR coaching or something along those lines, where they're getting a lot of hours, and they also want this program where they've got 125 hours of approved coaching. So they literally can move, to answer that person's question, start in the path through this ACTP, but right into the PCC. Okay, this is where it gets a bit confusing, but you still also need to complete the knowledge assessment, so that the knowledge exam. So hopefully that's doesn't feel clear as mud. The most common and the most flexible path is going the other route, where it's a la carte and you have flexibility around how much you can pick. But having a program that you need at least the 60 hours to get you even in the running of coach training for the ACC, one of the three. And so as a reminder, the ACTP stands for Accredited Coach Training Program, and the ACSTH stands for Approved Coach Specific Training Hours. So the difference between the two designations or accreditations with the ICF is that the ACTP is a coach training program that has more than 125 hours of training, and the ACSTH is less, it can be less than 125 hours. Okay, so you want to make sure you're also factoring in the number of coach training hours that are there, and if they include mentor training or not. And Coaching Out of the Box definitely offers 10 hours of those mentor training. So talk to Emily, talk to Stephanie, make sure you get lined up if you've got questions about that. Okay, anything else that's coming in at this point in terms of questions?
Yes. There was one question about if there's a shelf life on training.
And so could we be just add a little bit more context for me? Maybe
Sure, that's all that the question was, but I'm interpreting that as, is there an expiration date? So if I have my training now, but I don't apply for my certification for a couple of years, is there, I guess, an expiration date?
In terms of applying for the credential?
And like how long your training is valid for?
Well, in terms of the training, the coach training you have, as long as you are renewing with the ICF and you've got their credential and you're continuing, this is where continuing education credits come in. So that's what keeps everything fresh and current, because you take a training program and it's that static in time. You could always come back and do more of it, but you want to be continuing to, and it's a requirement with the ICF, is to get at least 40 hours, particularly at the PCC level. Like I know that off the top of my head, you need at least 40 hours of continuing education credit. So I'm hoping that answers the question. Okay. So pre-credential, depending on how long, I believe it's between, you've got to submit between 18 and 24 months, but I think I don't want to guess on that. So I really want us to, can we take that away? Can we make a note of that question, Emily, and get back to anyone that's asking this question? Because I want to make sure we're 100% crisp on that one. All right, so I'm just going to touch now on the portfolio path. So this is, you'd only really consider this if you're taking non-approved training toward the ICF coach specific training requirements. And you just need to provide some pretty robust documentation to support this, because you've got to have at least 60 hours of coach training and this is as right from the ICF website, includes the ICF definition of coaching, code of ethics, core competencies, and is organized in a scope and sequence that encourages your growth as a coach. So this is just my personal opinion on this. If you've got something with a bird in the hand, like Coaching Out of the Box, or an organization that offers you this in a really clear and succinct path forward, it seems like a no-brainer to me to go that route. So this is just if you've done something else and you want to go in another route, the ICF's giving you an option to do this and still get your ACC. So you're still going to need your 10 hours of mentor coaching over that 3-month period. And you need 100 hours of coaching experience and 1 recorded and transcribed coaching session. And you also still need to complete the CKA exam. All right, so can we advance to the next slide, please? Perfect, thanks. Just want to pause here because that's a lot to take in just for those 3 different paths for the ACC. And as you're thinking about this, it's an opportunity to ponder the coach credentialing process and just consider, what would a credential do for you? Could it help you get clients? Maybe you're looking for a job. Maybe it'll help you feel more confident or feel you've got more credibility with a coaching accreditation behind your name. Or will it potentially even advance your career? I mean, this is something else that people can consider. Will it help to strengthen your resume, what's on there, or your LinkedIn profile? Will it create new opportunities? And if you're someone like me who loves education and thrives in this space, you may need to say, like, do I actually need another credential? Or if you don't, and it's been a while and you really want to challenge yourself and you love online learning, then this is an opportunity to add something into the mix for you. And then also to really think through, how are you going to use it? How is it going to benefit from you? And then obviously, one of the things that I've mentioned several times already is, from what approved coach training program are you going to get this training to help you make sure you tick the boxes for the requirements in the ICF? All right. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing, people in the chat. I love that you're there and participating. So let's advance to the next slide. So when you're applying for this, and whether or not you've thought through the questions that we just had on the slide before, and you either maybe you've got to think through it a bit more, or you already have the answers, I'd love to hear if you're planning on applying for either your ACC or your PCC, or maybe even your MCC. So maybe just put in the chat, yes, I'm going to apply, or no, or maybe, or I'm unsure. The ACC, yes, not sure yet. Maybe, yes, I'm going to apply. Awesome. The training will help leapfrog me. Yeah, absolutely. Into larger organizations. Yes, not sure. And it's yes, by this Friday. Woohoo! That's awesome. Okay, fantastic. I love this. It's great. Thank you. All right. So next steps, as you're going through this, and for the person that's doing this Friday, hopefully this is really timely for you. You want to make sure you're selecting the right path, because that's going to show up when you're on the ICF page for your application, which path, and they'll help you filter through that, whether it's the ACSTH, the ACTP, or the portfolio. And then depending on the path you've selected, you submit your performance evaluation, which is that 1 recorded and transcribed coaching session. And then you'll complete the coach knowledge assessment, which, as I mentioned earlier, represents that 155 multiple choice questions, and it's administered online. I would recommend, I work on a Mac, so I'm just going to say this, open up Chrome to do this, because when I did it on a Mac, it was quite stressful. I couldn't see all the functionality on the exam, so I'm just going to put a plug to say, don't do this online exam in Safari, pick another browser. So I don't know if anyone would has that in mind. I just wanted to throw that little tip out there. And then so basically then you've got 60 days from the time you get the link to complete the CKA exam to complete it. So you've got time if you still want to, practice or connect in or make sure you really fine tune your knowledge in this space. So it's not like you have to do it immediately. And the other thing I would say is this takes a lot, this once you've got everything in the hopper, and you're ready and you're like, oh, I'm ready. I'm going to apply for this. It's hurry up and wait. So you've done all the work and congratulations for getting to that point, but you've really got to be patient because it can take upwards of, 12, 14, 16, 18 weeks, maybe faster, maybe slower. It depends, but it's going to take a little while for the assessors to go through that process. So my recommendation to you is be patient and keep coaching, like just keep going through this and, making sure that you are practicing your coaching all the time, right? So you just, and stay patient. That's the big thing. So let's move to, I think, one of the biggest questions that I've seen. And I know for me, when I was originally going through this, I found this pretty confusing and I wasn't sure. So what coaching hours can we track toward the ICF coach credential? So just put in the chat if this is something you're confused about or you'd like to have clarified. Is anyone confused about it? Clarify, please. Yeah, absolutely, Mona. Yes, Nikki. For sure, Sylvia. We'll make sure that we cover this now. So here are, from my my view on this too, the straight goods. A client coaching hour is 60 minutes of actual coaching. With someone who's hired you, it could be barter, it could be peer coaching, hired you as a coach and not in any other capacity. And paid hours, so this is a point of clarification that people often get confused about. Paid hours are anything for which any kind or amount of compensation, including barter, is received, right? So you can coach someone and they coach you, and that's the barter experience. Now, what's important to think about here is if you're in a coach training program and you're doing coaching in your training class, that does not count. If I were to connect with Emily or Stephanie outside of my class and did peer coaching, I could count that. That counts, but not in the training program, okay? So peer coaching is considered paid coaching. Now, what isn't a client coaching hour? So if you're employed, if you have direct reports, coaching them is not considered a coaching hour for tracking toward your accreditation. And also you want anything in terms of pro bono hours above the allotted amount, that also isn't included. And then exactly what I'm doing here, like I couldn't count this as coaching. And if I were facilitating a coaching program for coaching out of the box, those don't count either, right? So it's gotta be that you're hired or you have the barter or the agreement that you're coaching, and that's the only thing that you're doing in that space. And also not giving casual advice to friends or colleagues, that doesn't count, or participating in a staged or a mock coaching session. So it's got to be the real deal in terms of what you're doing. But if you're not sure, you can reach out to the ICF around that. They have a great, like as I mentioned, a great and a very effective and quick chat feature so that you can go there, or you can connect in with Coaching Out of the Box just to make sure, particularly as it relates to the Coaching Out of the Box program. So hopefully that helps. All right. So let's stop here for a second. So Emily, do you want to jump in? I see a question here. What's coaching out of the box?
Great question. So coaching out of the box is a training institution for coaches to have the required education or required coach training hours to successfully apply for certification through the ICF.
Great.
We also offer a ton of other programs. Like the Fast Track program is the main program that offers the requirements for certification, but we offer a ton of other self-led programs. We offer workbooks and downloads and these webinars. So yeah, there's a ton of resources for current coaches as well as people wanting to become certified coaches.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thank you. I see a question that's in here too from Beth. And Beth, this is a very specific question, and I would like to make sure, Emily, we can take this one away and help facilitate that answer, because that's a nuanced question where I think there's some technicalities in there. And Beth, I'm sorry that we're not going to be able to give you that response in this moment, but we will be with you to help facilitate getting you that response. And Jane's asking a question: does that time include the opening piece where you get to know the person a bit, or only the actual minutes when you start the first question? What do you want to work on today? Well, I think it depends on whether or not you feel like you've officially started coaching. When you feel you've officially started coaching, that's when the clock starts ticking. So particularly if you know the person wants to have that sense of familiarity around a little bit of that warm up, you're still in that coaching space. So I think you've got to make a decision around when you feel you've actually started that piece. I know that even if, someone says, oh, I've had a really rough week, or you're having this bit of a conversation, I'm still in that coaching arena. So I hope that helps. And Kathy's asking a question here. So can we continue with coaching on the box after the fast tracks for the PCC with 125 hours of training? I'm going to turn that over to you, Emily.
Perfect. Now you're reading my mind, Susan. So we do offer continuing education courses that would help you with the additional hours of training that you would require for PCC. One nuance, and Susan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that the PCC 125 hours of training is collective. So your 68 hours that you received from coaching out of the box for your ACC credentials would count towards that 125 hours that you would require. So you would just need the difference to apply for PCC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right on. Yeah. Very good. We have another question that's come in here. Does the Fast Track program offer materials or classes on how to obtain clients?
So there isn't a specific module around business development. However, there is a ton of class discussion and utilizing the collective wisdom because students come from all different backgrounds and experiences. So there's a ton of collective wisdom, and the coach facilitators do a great job of collecting that information and that in-class discussion about how you can build your coaching practice, obtain new clients, maintain existing clients, all of that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to carry on a little bit here to kind of wrap up this piece around what gets captured, because not only do we need to understand what can be included in your coaching hours toward the accreditation, but also the log. So this is really important to make sure that you are using, like, tracking your clients and getting their consent to capture their information, because you could be audited potentially by the ICF. And the ICF has a downloadable template on their website, and we could just put that, it's under experience requirements, in the chat for people to be able to see that, because it's a huge website, so it might be just helpful to, if we can capture that at some point. It's coachingfederation.org/experience-requirements. Okay, so what needs to go into a coaching log? Well, any of the following type of clients. We talked about a few different ones: coaching individuals, group coaching, like group coaching groups, or coaching internally for an organization, or if you're paid by a third party. So in the coaching log, you want to capture that. Is it individual? Is it group? Is it third party? And using a log to track that, because you want to know if you're getting to the 100 or the 500 or the 2,500, depending on where you are in the path. You want to make sure you're capturing the client's name, the contact information, the start and end dates of the engagement, whether it's paid or pro bono. And this is a nuance around group coaching for any that are thinking about doing that. In order for it to count as client coaching hours, the coaching group can't be larger than 15 participants, but it only is like if you have a 1 hour session with 15 participants, it's still only considered 1 hour of coaching, not 15 hours because you had 15 people there. So 1 hour. So basically you just take, let's say the person's, one person in the group, I'm going to say Diane Smith. You would just put Diane Smith's name down for that group. So hopefully that helps and that captures your group and her contact information. All right. So that's so good. We've got it posted. All right. Fast track. So I'm just making sure there's nothing else there. And I want to touch on this internal coaching with an organization or paid for by a third party. If coaching is paid for by a third party or done as part of, the person who's applying for their ICF credentials employment, it counts as paid coaching if that coaching is as a designated part of the coach's job description. So if you're trying to coach a direct report, I mentioned this earlier, it's likely not going to be considered in coaching hours, right? So it's good to have the skills. Leadership coaching is amazing to develop that skill, but we have to be pretty clear on what constitutes a client coaching hour. So what happens when you're capturing this information that's on the log, right? Well, when you apply for your ICF credential, you've got to attest. You basically say, yes, I've met the 100 hours, or I've met the 500 hours, or I've met the 2,500 coaching hours, and that you've got your log. But due to privacy restrictions, you don't actually submit the log. And I noticed there's been some confusion around that. You don't submit your client log to the ICF. You've got to keep it for your records, particularly if the ICF should come back and want to audit you for some reason. And so just as I mentioned, make sure you're obtaining consent from your clients to release their names to the ICF. So if you have any kind of a coaching agreement or even a discussion with them as you start a contract or an engagement with them, that's really important to do. And just make them aware of that process. And if for any reason the ICF were actually to reach out to your clients, they would never discuss the specific topics of coaching. Okay, so I just wanted to share that with you. So as we're getting close to the end here, I just want to kind of wrap up can we go to the next slide? Let's review again what we covered, right? You can come in through these paths. You have to go through, so you could go the ACC route navigate through to your PCC, but you've got to stop there because a requirement for the MCC is you've got to have your PCC first. So hopefully that helps. And remember, all-inclusive training is that ACTP with that P in there, and the a la carte, so you can choose, you've got flexibility, is the ACSTH, right? So just think about those things in the portfolio as if have done something else that isn't necessarily already approved as a training partner through the ICF. And you've got to meet those other requirements that we talked about with the number of hours and the knowledge exam and the recording, depending on the stream that you're going through. So just come back to the website for ICF just to make sure that everything is accurate, because things can change as we've seen during COVID. And that's the main spot to go for the accreditation requirement, the process. Coaching Out of the Box is facilitating this webinar to make sure we're helping you navigate that process more effectively. And so I'm just going to stop there and see where we're at. Is there anything else that's coming up? Any questions?
There's one question that came in from Mary. Mary gets paid specifically to be a coach for her organization. Does that count as paid hours? She coaches the employees one-on-one and she does group coaching.
Yes, absolutely. So you just track that. And that's where, potentially, Mary, you might, depending on the number of hours you have, you might be able to navigate through to your PCC, right? Because you'd have so many coach hours already. Okay. So you'd want to check that out and find out if that's possible. I see Judy's asking, what's this? Okay, good. Stephanie's already on it. So the CKA, there's so many acronyms, which can be confusing in and of itself, is the Coach Knowledge Assessment. All right. Okay, and Irina has a question. I want to know about pre-credential, expired training, mentor coaching hours, coaching logs. So around this, the pieces, if you're working before you're actually applying, and you've got to have so many coaching clients within a set period of time, depending on which stream you're going through. So I would invite you to go back to the ICF website and just check, because it could be 18 months, it could be 24 months. I would say it depends a little bit, but there is a window, and you just want to go there to verify that. Okay, and just go in the chat with the ICF to confirm, depending on where you already are in the process. Okay. All right. How are we doing for time? We're getting close to the top of the hour. Just want to check in. All right. Do we want to move to the next? Yes, move to the next slide, Emily.
Awesome. So yeah, thank you so much, Susan. You covered a ton of valuable information. There's tons of nuances and intricacies to everyone's individual situation, but with that said, I'm happy to answer any questions by email or on a phone call or Zoom call if there's things specific to your situation that you didn't have answered today. And Stephanie has dropped the calendar link if you do want to set up a phone call or a Zoom call. And I've dropped my email in there too.
I'm going to jump in if I can and answer two quick questions for these people who've been patiently, on this webinar. So I just want to share, Sylvia's asked, does ACC enhance your marketability, or do we start seeing more of the people? Absolutely, the ACC level. It's a great place. Remember, this is an unregulated industry, so you're really showing a lot of rigor, and you're taking yourself seriously in the space. So the ACC is a great spot to start. And some people never move beyond it. They just stay there. But the more coaching you do, you can definitely continue to go into the PCC level. It's just they're fewer, particularly as we get to the PCC spot. But yeah, absolutely. I say thumbs up for the ACC. And the other question from Judy is, for the 10 hours of mentor coaching required for the PCC, can the hours for the ACC be used? No, you need to have more mentor coaching that's specific to that accreditation, right? And the same thing for the MCC. So what you got for that mentor coaching is for that specific accreditation, whether it's ACC, then you need 10 fresh hours with a mentor coach for the next one, and then the following one. Okay. Can we send, can we send Emily's email to Lucy, or Lucy, I can connect with you and share that with you too. There we go.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Susan. This has been wonderful. And thank you all for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one.
All right. And we'll make sure we get your questions answered, so we save the chat. Not to worry. Thanks everyone for joining us. It was great to connect.